The United States pest control market generates over $4.6 billion annually. Americans spend hundreds fighting ants every summer. They spray, they bait, they call exterminators, and the ants return season after season, colony after colony. Meanwhile, there is a single leaf that exterminates entire ant colonies on contact. European households have used it for 500 years. It grows in any pot on any windowsill. But in 5 states, this plant is illegal. At the end of this video, you will know exactly how to use it to create a permanent ant-free perimeter around your home for the rest of your life. Welcome back to Garden Explained with Harry. Click that subscribe button. Now let us begin. Every homeowner knows the nightmare. You wake up one morning and there they are. A black line marching across your kitchen counter, trailing along your windowsill, emerging from a crack you never knew existed. You spray them. You wipe them away. You seal the crack with caulk. 3 days later, they find another entry point, another crack, another path to your food. The pest control industry understands this cycle perfectly. They have built a $15.5 billion global empire on the simple fact that chemical solutions are temporary. The spray you bought last month needs reapplication this month. The bait stations need replacement every 6 weeks. The professional exterminator needs to return every quarter. This is not a flaw in the system. This is the system. Chemical pesticides account for 56% of the global pest control market. That is approximately $8.7 billion in annual sales of products designed to require repeat purchase. The business model depends on one thing. Your ant problem never actually ends. But there is another cost nobody discusses. The Centers for Disease Control documents thousands of pesticide exposure cases annually. Symptoms include rashes, eye irritation, dizziness, and nausea. Long-term studies link chronic exposure to gut microbiome disruption and hormonal imbalances. Your children crawl across floors treated with neurotoxic chemicals. Your pets lick their paws after walking through residue. You breathe these compounds while you sleep. Here is the question nobody in the industry wants you to ask. How did households manage before synthetic chemistry existed? What did medieval families use when flies and ants invaded their food stores? What did colonial Americans pack around their meat to prevent insect infestation during transport? The answer has been growing in European gardens for over 2,000 years. It produces clusters of golden, button-shaped flowers. It spreads aggressively through underground stems. It contains chemical compounds so lethal to insects that medieval Europeans trusted it with their most sacred responsibility, preserving the dead. In churches across medieval Europe, a curious practice emerged during the warm months. Priests would scatter fresh green leaves across stone floors before services began. The sharp camphor scent filled the sanctuary. Flies that had plagued summer congregations suddenly vanished. Ants that had invaded food offerings disappeared. The faithful attributed this to divine intervention. The priests knew better. They knew the plant. The herb spread through monastery gardens across the continent. Monks documented its powers in illuminated manuscripts. They packed dried bundles around stored grain. They hung fresh cuttings in kitchen windows. They placed sprigs beneath mattresses to repel bedbugs and fleas. For 5 centuries, this single plant served as Europe's primary defense against household insects. But its most remarkable use involved the dead themselves. Before modern embalming existed, European families faced an impossible problem. Bodies decomposed rapidly in summer heat. Insects arrived within hours. Burial ceremonies required days of preparation. The solution came from the same golden flowered plant that protected their kitchens. Embalmers packed corpses in dense layers of the fragrant leaves. They wove the stems into funeral wreaths. They stuffed the aromatic flowers into coffin linings. The practice became so universal that the plant's name derives from the Greek word athanasia, immortality, the herb that defeats death itself. The evidence of this power survived for centuries. In 1654, Henry Dunster became the first president of Harvard University. He served with distinction for 13 years. When he died in 1659, his family followed the ancient tradition. They buried him wearing a wreath of this plant. They packed his coffin with dried leaves and flowers. Nearly 200 years later, in 1846, the cemetery required relocation. Workers opened Henry Dunster's grave expecting to find only bones and dust. Instead, they found the plant material almost perfectly preserved. The leaves retained their shape. The stems maintained their structure. The distinctive camphor scent still filled the air 2 centuries underground, and the herb's power remained undiminished. The plant is called Tansy, Tanacetum vulgare, common tansy, bitter buttons, golden buttons. For 2,000 years, it has grown across Europe and Asia. For 500 years, it has protected households from insects. For nearly 4 centuries, it has grown in American gardens, and almost nobody in the modern world knows it exists. The Pilgrims understood its value. When they loaded their ships for the journey to Massachusetts, they carried tansy seeds among their most essential supplies. They planted it immediately upon arrival. Within a generation, tansy grew in kitchen gardens from Plymouth to Boston. Colonial households rubbed the leaves on fresh meat to repel flies. They scattered dried flowers in pantries to deter ants. They hung bunches in doorways to keep flying insects outside. In England during the 1940s, pest control experts mixed distilled tansy oil with fleabane and pennyroyal to create mosquito repellent. Military supply officers documented the formula. Soldiers carried it into tropical theaters. The combination worked better than many synthetic alternatives available at the time. Modern science has spent decades analyzing exactly why tansy devastates insect populations. The answer lies in a complex cocktail of volatile compounds produced within the plant's tissues. The most lethal of these is called thujone. Tansy essential oil can contain up to 81% thujone by volume. This concentration exceeds nearly every other plant species ever analyzed. When insects encounter thujone, their nervous systems begin to fail. The compound acts directly on GABA receptors in the insect brain. These receptors normally regulate neural activity. They control muscle movement. They maintain basic life functions. Thujone blocks these receptors completely. The result is catastrophic neurological collapse. The insect experiences uncontrolled convulsions. Its muscles fire randomly. Normal neurotransmission ceases entirely. Death follows within minutes of exposure to sufficient concentrations. But thujone is not the only weapon in tansy's arsenal. The plant produces alpha-pinene, beta-pinene, camphor, and cineole. Each compound attacks insect physiology through different mechanisms. Research published in 2008 demonstrated that individual tansy oil components achieve 64 to 72% repellency against ticks. Combined, these compounds create a chemical barrier that insects cannot tolerate. Further studies confirmed the multi-target effect. Tansy disrupts acetylcholinesterase activity in insect tissues. This enzyme is essential for normal nerve function. Without it, signals cannot pass between neurons. The insect becomes paralyzed before it dies. Tansy also inhibits sodium-potassium ATPase activity. This enzyme maintains electrical gradients across cell membranes. When it fails, cells throughout the insect body begin to malfunction. The implications for pest control are remarkable. A single plant produces compounds that attack insect nervous systems through at least 4 independent mechanisms. Insects cannot easily develop resistance to this chemical assault because they would need to evolve defenses against multiple unrelated toxins simultaneously. Agricultural researchers have documented tansy's effectiveness against an extraordinary range of pest species. Ants avoid tansy completely. Cucumber beetles will not feed near tansy plants. Japanese beetles refuse to land on gardens where tansy grows. Squash bugs abandon infested plants when tansy is introduced. Flies will not enter rooms where fresh tansy hangs in windows. Mosquitoes actively flee areas where tansy oil disperses into the air. Gardeners have known this for generations. They plant tansy as a companion crop alongside cucumbers and squash. They grow it near rose bushes to protect against beetles. They border berry patches with tansy to repel insects that damage fruit. The plant asks nothing in return. It requires no fertilizer. It tolerates drought. It returns year after year without replanting. And yet, Walk into any hardware store in America. You will find aisles of chemical sprays and synthetic baits. You will find professional-grade pesticides and consumer-grade poisons. You will not find tansy seeds. You will not find tansy plants. You will not find any mention of this herb that protected European households for 5 centuries before synthetic chemistry existed. The pest control industry generates nearly $16 billion annually selling products that require constant reapplication. A perennial plant that returns every spring without purchase cannot generate quarterly revenue. A self-spreading herb that colonizes entire gardens from a single planting cannot create repeat customers. A medieval solution that works permanently threatens the entire foundation of modern pest control economics. This is not conspiracy. This is simple market dynamics. Companies fund research that supports their products. Universities pursue grants from available sources. Marketing budgets promote patentable solutions. A plant that has grown wild for 2,000 years cannot be patented. A traditional remedy documented in medieval manuscripts cannot be branded. A free solution cannot compete for attention against billion-dollar advertising campaigns. The pattern repeats across industries. Consider white clover. For 80 years, American lawn seed mixes included clover because it fertilizes soil naturally. Then herbicide manufacturers needed peacetime markets after World War II. They removed clover from seed formulations. They sold chemicals to kill what they previously sold as beneficial. 3 generations of homeowners have purchased fertilizer that clover would have provided free. Tansy faced no deliberate suppression campaign, no corporation organized to erase it from public memory. The mechanism was simpler and more effective. Neglect. A plant that generates no repeat revenue generates no marketing budget. A solution that requires no professional application requires no professional marketing. The system that promotes profitable products simply ignored the profitable alternative. But here is where the story takes an unexpected turn. Tansy is not merely forgotten. In 5 American states, tansy is actively illegal to cultivate. Colorado lists tansy as a prohibited noxious weed. Montana requires landowners to eradicate tansy from their property. Minnesota bans tansy cultivation entirely. Wyoming classifies tansy as a regulated invasive species. Parts of Washington state prohibit tansy under penalty of law. The official reason is ecological. Tansy spreads aggressively through underground rhizomes. A single plant can colonize entire meadows within a decade. Tansy forms dense monocultures that crowd out native vegetation. Wildlife habitat suffers when tansy takes over grasslands. The plant that protects gardens so effectively also dominates any environment where it gains a foothold. The irony is extraordinary. Tansy is banned specifically because it works too well. The same aggressive spreading that makes it a permanent pest solution makes it an ecological concern. The very quality that would end your ant problem forever makes it illegal to plant in the ground in 5 states. Meanwhile, chemical pesticides that require endless reapplication face no such restrictions. You can spray neurotoxic compounds across your property without limit. You can apply synthetic poisons that accumulate in soil and water. You can expose your family to documented health risks year after year. No state will fine you. No agency will intervene. The products that generate industry profits remain unrestricted while the natural solution faces prohibition. There is one critical fact about tansy that requires complete honesty. This plant can kill humans. Historical records document deaths from consuming as few as 10 drops of concentrated tansy oil. Prepared tansy teas have caused fatal poisoning. The same thujone that destroys insect nervous systems affects mammalian brains through identical mechanisms. Internal consumption causes restlessness, vomiting, severe diarrhea, tremors, seizures, and death. Pregnant women who consume tansy historically used it specifically to induce miscarriage. The risk is documented and real. This is not a plant to eat, not a tea to brew, not a supplement to take internally. Medieval households understood this distinction perfectly. They scattered leaves on floors, they hung bunches in windows, they packed dried material in storage areas. They never consumed it. External application for pest control bears no relationship to internal consumption for any purpose. Some individuals experience skin reactions when handling fresh tansy. Contact dermatitis affects sensitive people who touch the leaves directly. The solution is simple. Wear gloves when harvesting. Long sleeves prevent arm exposure. Wash hands after handling. These precautions eliminate risk entirely. Now for the solution that makes everything legal and everything safe. Container gardening changes the entire equation. Growing tansy in a pot prevents rhizome spread completely. The underground stems that colonize open ground cannot escape a container. The aggressive spreading that creates ecological concerns stops at the pot's edge. No state prohibits container cultivation of any ornamental plant. Tansy in a pot is tansy under control. A single container of tansy provides enough material to protect an entire household throughout the growing season. Place the pot in full sun. Water occasionally until established. Tansy tolerates drought, poor soil, and complete neglect. The plant asks almost nothing from you and provides protection that chemical companies charge hundreds of dollars to approximate. Harvest leaves throughout summer by clipping stems near the base. The plant responds to cutting by producing fresh growth. More cutting means more leaves means more protection. Dry bundles by hanging them upside down in a warm location for 2 weeks. Store dried material in paper bags or glass jars away from moisture. Create sachets by placing crushed dried leaves in cloth bags. Position these sachets in problem areas, kitchen corners where ants enter, windowsills where flies congregate, foundation cracks where insects gain access, along doorways where pests cross into living spaces, near pantries where food attracts foraging insects. Fresh cuttings work even better than dried material. Place glass vases of fresh tansy stems on kitchen counters during ant season. The volatile compounds release continuously from living tissue. Replace cuttings weekly as they dry. The sharp camphor scent tells you the protection remains active. For outdoor spaces, create a perimeter defense around patios and dining areas. Potted tansy plants positioned strategically form a living barrier against flying and crawling insects. Move containers as needed to protect different zones throughout the season. The portable protection travels with you across your property. A homemade spray extends tansy's protection further. Steep a handful of dried flowers and leaves in a bucket of hot water overnight. Strain the liquid into a spray bottle. Apply along baseboards, around door frames, and near known entry points. Reapply after rain or heavy cleaning. The solution costs nothing beyond the initial plant purchase. One tansy plant produces thousands of seeds annually. These seeds remain viable for years when stored dry. Collect seed heads in fall as the flowers fade to brown. Save seeds in paper envelopes for future planting. Share excess seeds with neighbors who face the same ant problems you once did. The pest control industry will continue selling temporary solutions that require permanent spending. Chemical manufacturers will continue marketing products that demand quarterly reapplication. Professional exterminators will continue scheduling repeat visits that generate recurring revenue. The ants will continue returning to every household that relies on these profitable failures. But you know what medieval Europeans knew? You know what colonial Americans knew? You know what 500 million people across Asia still know today? You know what grows in a pot on any windowsill, in any climate, in any home. If this changed how you think about pest control, subscribe to Garden Explained with Harry for more.